Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode we're going to discuss which company to buy, basically which camera company you should buy. Now first thing you have to understand that whenever you are talking about interchangeable lens camera, you are not talking about a camera body. It's not like Samsung mobile phone or Sony mobile phone. You can't jump between those because you are investing in a system. That is the critical aspect. And when I say system, I don't only mean in terms of like camera and lens. I mean flash, I mean battery, and I mean third party supports with accessories and all that. So all those make it into a system, and you have to be very thoroughly aware of the fact that let's say for some reason many people thought like, okay, hey, Fuji released a very awesome body, and you're like, everybody is giving it great reviews, you bought it, but then the first thing you realized, wait a minute, the lenses are not available, the specific lens that I want is not available, and the fact that the lenses that are available, they are not available physically in your location. You have to import them and all that, and that is increasing the price by twofold or threefold. So you also have to take that into account. First and foremost, camera is a part of ecosystem. Once you start to do photography seriously or professionally, what do I mean by professionally? Simply means you're making a money out of it, basically living out of it, then it's professional. And if you are in like high-end professional, like sports photography or things of that nature, your camera body would be the cheap part, your lenses will be the most expensive aspect of the system. So you also have to think in this way, that lens is the main investment. You're not investing in the camera body. Let's say you are buying let's say Canon 800D, same as I have done. I'm not buying the Canon 800D, I'm buying Canon ecosystem, aka Canon format lenses. So again, if the Canon has lenses or awesome lenses for me, I'm set. But if the lens selection is not suiting my needs, I'm dead. So that is why you have to understand this. Nobody can tell you which is best system for you. You have to decide it with your you have to sit down and calmly decide what is best suited for you, because there are many reasons. For many people, like Fuji is awesome, but for many of them, like who are living in Europe, Fuji is awesome. Many who living in India, Fuji, they don't even know about it, and I can't blame them. It's like if I say like Canon and Nikon is at 100% in terms of market penetration, Sony would be like around 70 to 85%, Fuji would be zero, like flat out. Only in big cities you can even find places that says, okay, Fuji, I sell it here. So that is the main critical aspect of it. You have to think of this as a system. You have to look into it. Hey, if I want to buy, let's say remote intervalometer remote, how expensive that is gonna be, like. And if you are like, hey, I'm gonna buy flash shoes and all that, I need that for flash photography, I'm saying micro photography, you're like, yeah, what is the cost of that? So all those things must factor into your decision, because that is why I'm specifying it is a system, not a camera body. Now, okay, let's say you have selected a company. Which format? Generally, most company have more than two formats. Generally, most of them have two. So in here, I can simplify it very simply. Full frame is king. Now think of it this way. I already made a detailed video about mirrorless versus DSLR, and the TLDR version of that is mirrorless is the future, DSLR is the old version. Same way SLR was replaced by DSLR, DSLR will be replaced by mirrorless. Again, it will take time. It's not one day event. But you have to understand this. The 35mm, the quote-unquote full frame, became full frame because it has been used for more than 50 years. And 35mm is a small format compared to what was used 50 years ago. Like I'm talking at the beginning of film photography. People used to have film that was 1 foot by 1 foot. I'm not joking. Like literally 1 foot by 1 foot. My father had a film camera, SLR, no, not SLR, as in a rangefinder that was medium format. So we are like aware of the fact that 35mm from those point of view was a small, it's a like quote unquote crop. But because it was like successfully integrated, like the film format, the format was integrated with the SLR so well that it became the de facto standard. Everything was standardized to 35mm. So full frame is the king, flat out. There is no discussion about, like, APS-C film was also tried. APS-C digital sensor was created because it was cheaper, but flat out none of them took off. APS-C film flat out died, and APS-C sensor did not catch on. Even though you may think like because they are selling so many cheap DSLRs, you may think, oh, APS-C is the king, but flat out full frame is. Now this is the very critical aspect. This is the part where many people trip, is that if you want to buy quality lenses, largest and cheapest lens collection is available for full frame. Now you're like, whoa. I get the large selection, because right now, let's say take example of Sony. You go into Sony and you're like, okay, show me 35mm lens selection. There is like 30 plus lenses. You select APS-C, there is barely 18. So you're like, okay, I got the large lens selection. How the heck it's cheap? Now there it is a very critical aspect, and this is why Micro Four Third quote unquote failed. Now again, many people are like, no, it's not failed. Again, just wait 5 years. Like after that, the first thing you have to understand, let's take a very recent example. This lens was released with Sony A6600. So okay, very new release. Now this is APS-C 16 millimeters to 55 millimeter. Again, full frame equivalent is 24 millimeters to 82 millimeters. Again, good enough. Now f2.8. Now this is where most people make the mistake. They multiply the crop factor to the millimeter, but they never do that with the aperture. Now that is the biggest mistake. Like if you think, like if you have ever seen a proper full frame camera with proper full frame lens as in 2.8 lens, the background blur is majestical. Now you buy this, you're like, okay, I'm gonna connect this to my A6400 and I'm gonna get the same result. You'll be like, okay, it's there, background blur is there, it's just not good. Why? Because it's f4.2. that is the critical aspect. The moment you compensate for aperture, all the full frame lens will start to become cheap. To give you a context, okay, so this lens is 24 millimeter to 82 millimeter full frame equivalent, f4.2, not even f4.2, and it has a range of 3.4x. so how much you can zoom in and zoom out. Now this is 500 grams and it cost 1 lakh rupees. Now again, don't focus on the currency, just focus on the number. Basically 100,000 2,490. So basically this is the new lens. Now here's the full frame equivalent of that. This is basically 24 to 105 millimeters. So basically it has more range. Instead of 3.4x, it has 4.3x. Flat out, more range basically, and it is f4 constant. So not only it is brighter compared to f4, it's constant. Again, it's a larger range. It has optical image stabilization. Basically, if you buy a Sony A6400, this is the best lens option for you, because if you buy this, you have to always shoot in high ISO, otherwise you will get motion blur. This has optical image stabilization. Now this was is only basically 1,14,000, little bit more. Basically in terms of X factor, how much is more? Like if this was 1, this is 1.11x. So little bit more, you are getting 1x more range, you are getting optical image stabilization, and you might think, okay, what if this is like 2-3 kilos? This is 500 grams, this is 663 grams. So that's the whole point, and that's solely because of like optical image stabilization and the fact it has more range. So that's how you understand this, like flat out, because full frame lenses have been sold for like 50 years, and when digital came out for the Nikon and Canon, the photographers, they did not ditch their lenses. They stayed with the basically full frame lenses. Full frame sells far more than APS-C system. That is why APS-C lenses are inherently expensive, even though they are physically lighter. And if you think this is expensive, try micro four third lenses. You will be like surprised, like they're physically lighter. Like 1 kilogram of micro four third lens is like 3 times the cost of a full frame equivalent. So flat out, not enough of it has been sold. Like APS-C is only 20-year-old format, barely. Micro Four Third, that's barely 15 years old, and both of them were built on a false premise. Specifically, Micro Four Third. The whole reason Panasonic jumped into Micro Four Third, the idea was that the sensor is the most expensive part, which is not anymore. The most expensive part right now in a camera body is the processor. That is why Panasonic can give you a Micro Four Third camera for $2,000 and a full frame for $2,000. That is the whole point. Sensor is not the expensive part, it's the processor. And if again, I'm assuming the megapixel is the same, like 24 megapixel and 24 megapixel. Again, if you change, like you put APS-C is like 60 megapixel and full frame 12 megapixel, you get the point. So that is the whole point. Always buy full frame lenses, because you are competing against mobile phones now, and mobile phones are becoming very good with edge detection. Specifically now they are introducing a camera that is like built for only one thing, just detecting the edge. So it will detect my edge, blur out everything. Now will it look as good as a proper camera? Hell no. But will it look good enough? Absolutely. That is the reason you have to have full frame. Because if you like many people are like, even Tony and Chelsea specified, like they saw an actual wedding where there was no photographer. So you have to understand, people are changing their mindset is like compared to photography, because no longer photo is like whoa, that there used to be that whoa factor with DSLR. Now that's not the case. Why? Because again, background blur can be achieved with basically cheap mobile phone. So only way to compensate that is have even more dramatic basically background blur. So only way to have that is full frame. So flat out, in terms of format, there is no discussion, just go full frame. Okay, let's understand the big daddies of this. Whether you should buy this or not, that's up to you. But what happened with these two big daddies? And these have been starting with the film SLR as early as 50 to 55 years ago. So these are old puppies. Basically, they know their stuff. Now, both of them are losing market share. Now in the beginning they started to lose market share around 2004 and 2010 where they started like okay something is happening. So what happened was mobile phone became better and better. So at this point they are losing mobile phones, and Sony started to came in. So instead of like duopoly like Canon and Nikon, there is a Sony. So flat out both of these companies started to lose a massive amount of profits in their camera division, flat out. And they diversified instantly. They diversified their Nikon started to make industrial part, like many robots have Nikon encoders, and many medical industry have Canon equipment. So you can understand, like they diversified. Now they are making money from other ends, but they are not making as much money as from camera division as they used to. So flat out their focus has shifted. So their focus went from okay, camera dedicated, to like let's just make money because our camera is no longer make money. Now why that is the case, like why the heck Canon and Nikon cannot make a comeback? Because of the biggest hurdle they have is conflict of interest. This is a very prime example. This is basically Nikon D850, this is Nikon Z7. Again, both good cameras. Now D850 is best of the best. Basically, if you want quality camera, if like you bought this and you forget about it, this is the best camera for you. Like flat out, it is amazing. Now here's the deal, so is this. So how the heck Nikon is gonna make sure that people buy this? Because this is more expensive. Instead of buying this, they crippled this camera because of the conflict of interest. They want to, it's like mobile manufacturer is like, I want to sell 3G SIMs and also I want to sell the 4G SIM. Now you might be like, that's stupid, just sell one of them and latest one. Nikon and Canon, because they have like a warehouse full of DSLRs, and I'm pretty sure at least 3-4 DSLRs must be under construction or like in different phase of testing which they have to release. So they are in a state where they're like, I also want to sell my super expensive DSLR, but I also want to sell my new basically mirrorless. So what they are doing, they're crippling their mirrorless, because Nikon is 50 years old. They know how to make a professional camera body. They know that a professional camera should have a battery grip. Awesome, they have battery grip for this. Here's the deal, battery grip for this, if you buy, you attach it, you get a connection. So connection helps you to have shutter button on the battery grip. So basically if you are doing vertical shooting, you don't have to shoot like this, you can directly shoot it like this. So amazing feature for professional. They have it for this, not for this. They know how to build this, but they did not did this for this. Again, every professional requires dual card slot. Again, there is no competition about this. Like you have to only lose your stuff once and you're like, yeah, I'm not touching any system with only single file. And they have dual in this. They did not put dual in this. That is the whole context. They know how to make a good camera. They are not making it because if they did, let's say if Nikon did best, they just tried to do their best. They are like, let's try to do a best camera. This will not sell. So this is the conflict of interest with Nikon and Canon. Both of them are suffering. And Canon has just released Canon EOS 90T. Again, a good DSLR. Is just the deal, why you are releasing DSLR in 2019? So that's the whole problem. So they're like, okay, we are releasing a DSLR and same sensor, same capability, actually bit better capability in mirrorless. So why will we make sure that how the heck both of them sell? You can't. So they are like, okay, put USB charging on mirrorless, don't put USB charging on DSLR. So you can understand they have internal conflict of interest. They are not able to let go. Like, okay, this is the old product. People who are gonna buy this, they're gonna buy this. They can buy full lenses. They are a big money maker. They can utilize that lens in the mirrorless system. So they could have that, but rather it's like right now they are stuck. They're like, should I let go of my DSLR? And they're thinking no, because enough DSLRs have been sold, enough DSLRs are already in the production line. Yeah, that is the conflict of it. That is why both Nikon and Canon, they know how to make professional DSLRs. They know how to make professional mirrorless. They are not doing it. I mean, like, compare them to Panasonic. Panasonic's first attempt, they make a body that every Tom, Dick and Harry who's holding it's like, damn. It's like, that's a professional mirrorless body. They know how to make it. Sony does not know because Sony is not old enough. But these people know, but they are not doing it because of conflict of interest. Now, Canon's biggest hurdle is like somebody infected their brain and they are like, yeah, instead of releasing 5-6 products in per range, basically there used to be 3 APS-C camera and like 3 full frame cameras. Again, rough ideas. And there were like, the idea was like next generation will reduce the price of the old one and then you will have a very smooth gradient, like from cheapest to bit more expensive, bit more expensive, bit more expensive. So now they have 30 plus DSLRs. What the hell? Why? Like, they're literally creating so many products, and not only that, they're crippling entire product range just so they can sell their C200 series, which is not selling enough. Because again, if you are thinking about buying C200, you're gonna buy that. It does not matter whether there is a cheaper alternate or not. And if you are gonna only afford let's say a DSLR for a video shooting, you're not gonna buy C200 anyway. You're just gonna jump to basically Sony, and that's what Canon is facing. Canon is, yeah, we are losing 10% market share per year. I'm like, seriously, stop crippling your system, stop making hundreds of products. Now, okay, That's with Canon. What's the problem with Nikon? Nikon's biggest hurdle is that this is a good camera. Flat out, this is a very good camera. But the limitation is Nikon hasn't figured out how to do autofocus on sensor. Be mindful of that. Nikon's autofocus in terms of phase shift and all that, which is like independent sensor, that is better than Canon actually. And their 3D depth tracking is actually tangibly better than Canon system. However, Canon's ace up its sleeve is dual pixel autofocus. That's what killed basically Nikon's edge in market share, because Nikon's at one point was like ahead against Canon for like around 30-35 years. So the whole thing changed with Canon EOS 5D when the first time they released full frame HD camera. And again, this is the time, like a company that pioneered everything, now not giving 4K. Why? Because their C200 will not sell. So that is the whole point. They have a lot of conflict of interest. Even with Nikon does not make video camera. They can easily make a very awesome video camera, because you have to understand, Nikon is the only one in mirrorless sense that you can get 10-bit output. So if you can do manual autofocus, this is a very good camera. So that is the problem with Canon and Nikon. They are like struggling with their own internal conflict of interest, and they have way too many products. And Nikon still has to learn how to make good autofocus. Their autofocus is very good in daylight. The moment the light goes dim, it's useless basically. Now let's talk about the two new kits in the town, Fujifilm and Sony. Now Fujifilm has been making actual film roll for decades and centuries, so they know how to make colors. That is why everybody is happy with Fuji color systems, because they know how to make you feel good rather than having quote unquote real to life, accurate and all that. They're making film simulation, the color output that feels good, and they have experience like what kind of quote unquote film cells, what kind of people have the feedback. Because of that experience, they always know how to make good images. Now Fujifilm only focuses on two formats, APS-C and medium format. Now here's the trick what they are doing. They know they can't compete with Sony. Nothing can compete against Sony. They know they can't compete against Nikon or Canon, so they are not even fighting there. They are fighting where nobody is fighting. Nobody is making professional APS-C, because that will be another conflict of interest. So Fuji is putting everything plus the kitchen sink on the APS-C system. So right now, if you want to buy APS-C system, even Sony cannot give you much. You might be like, what if I buy a Sony A6600? Does not have dual card slot. So you can't utilize that for professional reasons. You can do that with Fuji. So you can understand that Fuji has like APS-C market covered and medium format. Now again, if you don't think medium format is necessary, that's absolutely true for most of the people. But the moment you do product photography, watch photography, things of that nature, you go to a Rolex product photography and come up with a full frame, then that's the door disappear. So you have to understand that they are only making two things. Now the biggest hurdle with Fuji, even though they make a very good system, very good compelling argument, they have very low market penetration. So basically in India, again, if you are in Europe, you may have a different perspective. You are in Japan, you may have different perspective. But right now in India, as of me making this video, the market penetration is flat out zero. Like if I take a Nikon and Canon as 100%, Fuji is not even in the same scale. So that is the biggest problem. Now another aspect of that, Fuji was not taking video seriously from day one. Now Sony was doing that. Why? Because Sony was making video camera before it was cool. So you have to understand, like Sony have a legacy of making digital video cameras. They were the first to make a full HD cinema video camera, which was used for Star Wars prequel. So you can understand, Sony knows video. Like many of your movies, many of your TV news systems and all that, they are relying on Sony. So Sony is like, I know video. So their lens argument, like how they are designing the lens, is also following the video specification. So they have very silent lens. Fuji makes very slow lenses. Like their old lenses are very slow. They physically takes time to move. So even if the system has good eye autofocus and all that, it just takes time. So flat out, those two things combined, that fact I can't buy it in India and the fact that lenses are not the latest and greatest, makes it very hard to recommend. Now let's talk about Sony. Sony is attacking on two fronts, APS-C and full frame. Again, they have conflict of interest because there is two of them. Now again, APS-C in medium format is not color, because medium format minimum is $10,000. So that's a completely different ball game. So APS-C, they want to make money from APS-C, but again, if they make best APS-C, the problem becomes like, why the heck people will buy full frame? So again, you can understand conflict of interest. It's not there with medium format and APS-C. They are two different worlds. So Sony also struggles with it, and you can easily see this in Sony A6600. It's like, why does not it have dual card slot? Why does not, like certain things, little things like that, you will be like, why? So now again, compared to Nikon and Canon, it still has lower market penetration. Like let's say if I rate Nikon and Canon, like, because even in my smaller hometown, I have more than 3 shops with each of them, like Nikon and Canon, but barely one with Sony. They can buy it. Like if I go to a shop and they're like, hey, I want to order a Sony one, they're like, sir, aa jayega. Like they will bring it in 2-3 days. So you can understand the market penetration is there. It's just not as awesome as Nikon and Canon. Now biggest hurdle with Sony is that Sony is Japanese, so company ego. Now this is the very critical part. Sony will rather die than ever change their own product lineup. Now this has happened with Sony in time and time again. Specifically, the most of the funniest and saddest thing was Sony tried to make a Betamax, which was awesome. It was literally better than VCR counterpart. Here's the problem: every company, which included Radio Corporation of America, basically RCA, the company responsible for bringing hardware from other countries and selling that, and that time it was the granddaddy. They flat out said, Sony, please make a camera basically format that can store more time. Basically try to reach as 2 hours as possible. They're like, no, we are making production hardware, and production hardware is only 40 minutes because 20 minutes, like if you're making 1 hour TV show, you only supposed to make 40 minutes and 20 minutes is reserved for advertisement. That is why it's only 40 minutes. So Sony is like, okay, it's 40 minutes, so 40 minutes should be good enough for everyone. Every Tom, Dick and Harry kept telling them, and I mean companies keep telling them, like from Toshiba to everything. It's like, please make it longer there, because audience does not have that luxury. Audience may have want to record it further, much bigger slice, and they only get 1 hour slice. They do not get that 40-minute slice. So Sony's like, no, we know what is done, and the whole branch died. So again, and you can see that in Sony's camera also. Sony's like, we give you a touchscreen, but will not give you a touchscreen. It's like, I will not give you a touchscreen. I'll rather die than give you a touchscreen. It's like, only you can touch to focus. Can you use the menu? Like, touchscreen is there, the physical hardware is there. Can you touch the menu? No. Why not? No, it's like Sony. It's like I'm rather gonna die and sell my company than ever give you functions. And that is why, like, you can notice it. Like, it take them 4 generations to figure out, hey, camera body needs to be big enough that you can actually hold it. That is the first time they are releasing a body that people are like, now it's a Sony that you can hold without hurting your hands. Buttons that are big enough that you are like not twitching and all that. These things Panasonic figured out in one go with full frame. So that is, you have to understand that tech division, awesome. The division that decides what goes into a product, they're like, no, we rather go bankrupt than and I can guarantee you, Sony a6600 is so overpriced, and it has sensor that is like ancient, and they make the sensor for Nikon and Fuji. Nikon and Fuji both have better color reproduction than Sony. How the heck that's happening? So you can understand, like, Sony has a company ego issue, so please be mindful of that. I cannot say, oh, Canon and Nikon, again, they are struggling, they are figuring things out. They may make awesome things. Maybe Nikon figures out autofocus, proper autofocus, and they might kick ass again. Or maybe Canon finally learns from, after losing market share from dominance to okay, dude, we really have to do something to. They may figure out, instead of making hundreds of products, let's make few awesome products. So again, things could happen, but again, Sony, be mindful of that. Please be mindful of the ego. So this was my presentation about which camera system to buy. Now again, if you feel confused, that's the whole part of it. It takes time for you to decide what to buy, and nobody else can tell you. Like, you have to sit down and you have to decide with yourself. Only thing I can tell you, buy full frame and buy full frame lenses. And if you cannot afford full frame body, no problem, but do make sure full frame lenses you buy, because full frame lenses are generally compatible with APS-C body. And I already showed an actual example. So this was my presentation with which company to buy. I hope you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I'd urge you to press dislike. Press this twice to show me your extra disappointment, and please leave a comment because I reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.